So, please get yourselves reasonably comfortable. Wow, so many people in the chairs and on the floor. There's still a few more chairs here. We've got one of the most comfortable of chairs over there. So anyway, thank you for coming to the meditation. Now is the opportunity for me to give a talk about something. And there's a couple of chairs in the front over here. Those who want chairs, over here. If you want to sit on the floor, there's plenty of room over here. If you want to really get the best seats, there's a few seats over here, but it would mean you're going to have to shave your hair off this talk. I don't know why not more people don't shave their hair. Even if you don't become a monk, it's a beautiful hairstyle. You don't have to worry about your hair's out of place or brushing it. You just go under the shower and wash it at the same time as you're washing your body. It's so simple. But anyway, for the talk this evening, I'm going to talk, I'm not sure, I never know what's going to happen, but I did promise someone who came to a monastery, they were talking, say, can you please give some information about a very current topic, which is like domestic violence. It's a nasty topic to talk about, but if you can lessen people's suffering and make people feel a bit more free, that's really, really helpful. And I know that sometimes that people of all genders, of all ages, sometimes resort to violence out of desperation, out of lots of negativity, out of not knowing what else to do in their life. And it became a personal story for me, and I can see, from a distance of what happened, from this is a family history. Because for many years I kept asking my father, my paternal father, of course paternal father, my father, can I have maternal father? I asked my father about his father, and he would never talk about him. And that was kind of worrying. There must be something there that my father felt he needed to hide it from me. But eventually, after many years, I was about 14 or 15, it was just about a year or two before my father passed away, that I really pressed him on it. Dad, I need to know about, your father. He's where I came from. He was my grandfather. I knew he was born in Liverpool, but who was he? Why don't you talk about him? And that's when my father shocked me. He decided I was kind of old enough to allow this to be shared. And I was so grateful he shared this with me. He said that, shocked me first of all, and again, please excuse the language. He said, your father, and he said, my father, your grandfather, talking to me, was a bastard. And he said that with venom. And that's the first time my father had used such a coarse word in such a way. And I asked, why? What did he do? And that's when you can see my father's face screw up. Still had the trauma left in him. And he said that his father, the grandfather, was a plumber over in Liverpool. Very bad, poor times. Depression years, and when he did have any money, he would spend it down the pub, get drunk, and come home and take off his leather belt. And he'd whip any kid who happened to be in his way. And my father told me, you can imagine how much that hurt, but it never hurt as much as when he had to witness his own father started beating his wife, my father's mum. And you could see just the memory of that was just still hurt terribly. The one person he loved the most this mother, he could not protect her at all. But the response he had to that kind of inspired me. It's one of the reasons I don't mind telling this story. Because he said, when he was on the end of a whipping for no reason at all, he said that he made a resolution, a promise to himself, if ever that he survived this and got married and have a kid himself, he would never ever hit them. And that's why so often, my brother and I, we would fight. I wasn't born a monk. I was a male. And you see that in monastery, you see young kangaroos fighting. It's just what males do. We try not to hurt one another. But anyway, when my father would come into the room to try and quieten us down, he could never hit us. He just couldn't do it. And because I knew no other father, I thought this was normal. And I didn't realize just how abnormal that was. He actually turned the experience of domestic violence into an understanding of what it really felt like. He would never ever do that to his own kids. He was such a soft dad. And I know that many monks at Bodhinyana Monastery, they keep saying that to me. I don't know if they criticize me for this, but they said, Ajahn Brahm, you're too soft. Sorry, I can't help it. I much would be a soft monk with kindness than anything else. So, having had their own experience of what domestic violence leads to, never actually receiving it, you can imagine just how much of a pain that is for people in this world. And the lady who asked me to please, can you bring that up in this talk, also mentioned that, especially for people who are Buddhists, sometimes we have this silly idea, and I don't know why you even allow this idea to continue inside of you, that you have to receive the beatings or the violence because it's your karma. It's a karma has made you like this, and so you have to receive it. Don't do anything about it. And to me, I thought, oh my goodness, if I slipped over when I got up to go back to Serpentine, and if I broke my leg, would I just lay down here and say, oh, this must be my karma. I can't interfere. Do not call an ambulance. Let me suffer here. It's my karma. Of course, you wouldn't take me to the hospital, you'd take me to the funny farm, because I'm mad, crazy. Of course, that's part of the karma. It's not sort of fate. You're not destined to suffer. If there's a way out, of course you'll find the way out. I come here most Fridays, I don't think, oh no, just you can sort it out for yourself. Or if you're suffering, if you're suicidal, if you're depressed, if you're upset and angry, that's your karma. Just, of course you never do that. You got something which is called compassion, knowing that you can interfere. That this is life is not just a set path where you have to always endure. If it's at all possible, if you can help anybody in even a short way, a small way, of course you will. And you will do that for me, and you will do that for one another. And I think it's a marvelous thing to see that message getting across to everybody. It doesn't matter who you are or what you are or how you're doing it. If you can help, of course you help. Just like this story I've been telling a lot of people recently. I don't ever want to make Friday night talks too serious. There was this rich man in a Rolls Royce, and he was just driving down the road, and he saw this really, really, really poor man on the side of the road eating grass. It was disgusting. I can't just allow this to happen. So he stopped his Rolls Royce and he got out and said, "What are you doing, sir?" He said, "Well, it's really hard, financial times." And this is all I've got to eat. It's not even good grass. And the rich man said, "Sir, please, come in my Rolls Royce. Come and sit in the back. I will take you for a really good meal." And he said, "Well, it's not just me. I've got a wife and 3 kids." He said, "Bring them in as well." And so they all sat in the back of the Rolls Royce. And as they were sitting there, they thought, all this idea which people have that rich people are just cruel and nasty and selfish, they don't care for anybody else, how wrong that is. And so this rich man drove them in the Rolls Royce to this huge mansion. And the gates opened and they drove inside. And there was such impeccable gardens and trees and lawns and even little waterfalls and lots of lawns. And then he stopped in the middle of one of the lawns. You've already guessed them. He said, "Please get out. Eat as much as you want." Whoops. Why do you all laugh? Anyway, it's kind of a funny story. But anyhow, there are really kind people. When you do see real kindness, not that stupid kindness, it really uplifts you. It's one of the most beautiful things in the world to see people do these kind acts. Has that ever happened to you? I remember it happened to me so many times. I remember just being on a cheap boat going over from Norway over back to UK. I was just hitchhiking, living on the cheap, and this couple came up to me and they said, "You remind us of our son who was also hitchhiking during the summer vacation over in Europe." So I said, "Please let us give you this wonderful lunch." And they paid for this incredible lunch for me. And it was like a big buffet. And it was actually the first and only time they gave me caviar. I had to try it because, it's like a big buffet, you can get it for free. Never again. But it was the kindness of the person. They wanted me to eat simply because they were remembering their own son, who was hoping that someone would look after them. Those acts of kindness are the beautiful part of life. But anyhow, with sort of domestic violence, if that ever happens to you, it's not as if the person who's perpetrating that domestic violence is a bad person. It is just that it's a kind of mental sickness inside of them. Anger, not knowing how else to behave. And it's a type of behavior which is never going to fulfill anything beautiful or good in this world. That's one of the reasons why, if it does happen, number one, it's not your fault. It's not as if that you can blame yourself. I don't know how many people, when they look at what's happening, if they look at it by themselves, you can find all sorts of excuses to blame oneself. So this is my karma. I'm just paying something off, either from this lifetime or last lifetime. No. Violence never has any place in this world. And that's also just one of the reasons why I really, when I first got into Buddhism, just as a teenager, and I chose to follow this path. I wasn't compelled by my parents or by my culture. You could look at it and I thought, this is really the type of life I would like to live, and just to encourage to others, if you did make a mistake, you're always forgiven. And that's what I kind of really thought was amazing. How much can you forgive? A huge amount. Even, I'm just looking, look, I hope you're not here, because I was looking at one family, I can't see them here, and I never want to actually to share personal details, But again, this family just were almost totally wrecked, because of not being faithful to your wife, and because of almost committing suicide because of that, coming really close. And then afterwards, the whole family together, forgive, please. And the benefits of forgiveness, if you carry that pain, it's already done, it shouldn't have been done, for sure. But can't you actually forgive? And out of that kindness, so try again. And every time that happens, people ask me, how many times should you forgive? You know the answer? Always one more time. I kind of like that answer, because, in other words, always one more time. Not forever, but always one more time. Keep in the present moment. Don't look too far into the future. And sometimes that type of forgiveness can touch a person's heart. Sometimes they think they don't deserve forgiveness, but you give it to them anyway. Really. It just shows the softness of your heart, the wisdom of your heart. And sometimes that can touch other people to understand its powerful value. It means we can have some harmony afterwards. And that is why I just see the little kid in the back there. It's okay. Now say this, they can be noisy, please let them be noisy. They're kids. But someone was just asking me, can I please come to their wedding next year? And of course I'll try anything to be able to get there. And one of the reasons I do that was this celebrity wedding which I performed so many years ago now, for this Malaysian celebrity superstar. And after doing the wedding, it was only fortunate I happened to be in the same city. I was in Malacca at the same time that she was getting married. And so, please, can you please come and do my wedding blessing? Sure. Anything to be of service. And one of the things I said there, which meant so much to her and her partner, and it worked for them. And she said that I told them on the anniversary of their wedding, on the anniversary, just spend a couple of, one evening, just together, just the two of you, no one else. Just let's see if kids can go to a grandmother or something. Just the two of you, sit together, exchange a small gift, and then the wife or the husband, doesn't matter who starts, one says to the other, no, you're my partner in life. If there's anything which I've done, anything at all, by body, by speech, by mind, even thoughts which you may not have known, which has hurt you, which has caused you problems and trouble, anything, or things which I should have done, which I forgot to do. Sincerely, I ask your forgiveness. I am actually sorry. Please forgive me. And it's one of those rules which I remember reading in Buddhism. If somebody actually asks you sincerely for forgiveness, you must always give it. Always. It's like the humility and the respect for a person's honesty, confessing and knowing they really want to make their lives a better life and make this relationship a stronger relationship for themselves and the family, the children, everybody else. And then you always forgive, and then the other person has to say the same. Anything which I have done by body, speech or mind, intentional or unintentional, which has hurt, or things I didn't do I should have done, please, I ask forgiveness too. And they told me, they actually wrote this in an article in one of the magazines, because they were celebrities, saying that we've done this every year. It was the best piece of advice they got from me. It kept them together. It's not just like love and thinking, oh, we love each other, it's going to happen. These are something really positive, which makes it work. It's not domestic abuse, it's the total opposite. Just accepting you have faults, you're not perfect. I don't know if I said this simile last week. I often repeat the similes because you didn't hear them properly. Did you? Hopefully you did. But anyhow, this other simile, I remember as a young monk, when some of my friends, also monks, disrobed. And I thought, why do they disrobe? And then I thought to myself, Ajahn Brahm, why don't you disrobe as well? Then I thought, well, okay, if I disrobe, what sort of girl could I marry? I started thinking like this. And then I said, and I was heterosexual, and I said, well, she has to be beautiful, yeah. She has to have lots of lust, yeah. This is, okay, a monk. Fancy. Wait till the end before you walk out. And then she has to always be like kind of obedient, always compliant, or never get angry at me, never get upset at me, like the same sorts of things I like to do. And then when I kept on going like this, I realized, well, that woman, the only woman who I would like, would have to be perfectly enlightened by herself. And if she's already enlightened, that won't be any fun for me. So I decided to stay as a monk. It's amazing just what frustrates people. What frustrates people is the truth. You can never find a perfect partner in this world. Is that true? I'm not looking. But they're good enough. And that's actually something about relationships, which even I know as a monk. All those monks in Bodhinyana monastery, all those nuns in Dhammasara, are any of them perfect? They're all good enough. That's a wonderful thing about them. They're good enough. When they're good enough, you can have a very productive companionship with all these people. But if you try and only look for people who are perfect, that's when you get frustrated. That's when that frustration can so easily lead to violence, when you're tired and when you're not wise at all. It's one of the reasons why because I've been saying this teaching quite a lot in the last couple of days, and the reason was the old 2 bad bricks in the wall story. And the reason was I was just, after many years, I actually found out where those 2 bad bricks were. And recently, because we had these retreatants from Hong Kong and Indonesia were doing a retreat at Jhana Grove, and they asked, Ajahn Brahm, look, we've read that story so many times, we've heard you tell it many times, where are those 2 bad bricks? And so, I'd found them about a few months before. I actually told them, yeah, I know where they are, but look, I can't take you to them, because where they were was in the monks' toilets in Bodhinyana monastery. And that'd be the last. But they said, well, look, can't you just close them down for a couple of hours, so we can go in there with our cameras and take pictures of the 2 bad bricks? And I thought, that's a reasonable request, why not? And so I was with Ajahn Brahm and just walking past the monks' toilets, we went in there and I looked for them. I still can't think how this could happen, but it did. When I went to look for them in the monks' toilets, I remember where they were. I just could not see them. And you can ask Ajahn Brahm about this. I was looking here, looking there. They should be here. This is where I remember they were. and I could not find them. It was kind of weird because, I'm not losing my mind. Actually, it's not my mind anyway, so I don't mind losing it. But nevertheless, and it should have been there, but it was gone. I think it's something that's teaching me that, they're only there when you're in a tired mood or an angry mood. When you're in a good mood, happy, peaceful, healthy, you cannot see those crooked bricks, literally. And that reminded me of, something of how these moods which we have, they do even affect your perception. Even what you see is not exactly what is there. Now, people sometimes complain about that. They call something like which you see with your eyes bare perception. There is no such thing as bare perception, except over in the Ajahn Grove meditation hall, where you see many bears. But the idea of bare perception, just like seeing something, it's real. Is it? One of these little similes which I hadn't been telling for a number of years was when I was young. I don't do this these days. I don't think any of you do this either. I walked up Kingsbury Drive from Southwest Highway to the gates of Bodhinyana Monastery. In those days I was young, fit, really healthy, and moreover I had time. So I asked the driver of my car, drop me off at the bottom of Kingsbury Drive on Southwest Highway. I will walk up this morning. It's only 2.2 kilometers, that's not long. And so I just ambled up, fit, healthy, but it took me much more time than I ever expected. Because as I was walking, it was like I was seeing that hillside for the first time in my life. And that was weird. I couldn't recognize anything. And I was wondering, what's going on? Did they drop me off on the wrong hillside? I've been living up there by this time about 7 years, and I couldn't recognize the surroundings. I've been looking through the window of the car, whatever was driving me up, so many times, and I couldn't recognize the surroundings. Just the valley looked so much different. You could see so much more. And then I decided, I was so shocked, I decided just to stop and stare. No one else was there, so I had all the free time I needed. And when I stopped and stared, the hillside looked even more different and more beautiful. It's kind of weird. I saw more blades of grass and rocks with the lichen on those rocks, all the different trees and the different types of barks on those trees, so the undulating contours of the hillside, and even the little river in the valley just flowing quite sort of slowly and softly and peacefully, and all those little animals which were either in the grass or in the trees, the birds and so many other animals there. It was exquisite, and nothing like what I saw through the window of a speeding car. And then, of course, being sort of brought up in science, you wanted to find out what is going on. And so then I just understood, when you use your sight, rays of light come into the back of your eye, onto the retina, and there's a chemical reaction happens there. But if you're looking through the window of a speeding car, more light comes in, dislodges the first image, which hasn't fully formed yet. And then another image comes up, another image. None of those images fully completed yet. The chemical reaction doesn't have the time to finish whatever it's doing. And the brain doesn't have enough time to interpret, that image on the back of the retina. So what you see is like watercolors, washed out, not fully formed. And the detail is not there. It's just basic science. But when you walk instead of stand and still, when you just walk, it goes much more slowly. Images have more colour in them, more detail, more features, but nothing beats just standing still. When you're totally still and you're just looking, the image is fully formed. You know, the greens, the yellows, the browns are much, much richer than when you look through the window of a speeding car. And just all the different shapes and stuff, you can see them much more easily. I didn't realize just how people miss so much in this world because they go too fast. What you're seeing is real, but it's just washed out. And the details get blurred because you don't know how to go still. That's one of the reasons, and a few people were doing this on the Hong Kong Indonesian retreat. I told them, go out onto those beautiful stupas at Jhana Grove. Lay back and just look, especially at the Milky Way. There's a few days during that retreat, it wasn't raining, the air was so clear, and you can sometimes even lay back on those stupas with your eyes fully open. And when you are still, you don't move, the images of the Milky Way just form on the back of your eyelid, and it's actually magnificent. More magnificent than you can see when you're just walking down a road at night time. There's so much beauty, so much detail, which can be seen when you become still. That's one of the reasons why, please, just do some simple meditation. Don't work so hard, walk so fast. If there's any problem in any sort of domestic situation, if you can find a quiet place just to cool down, to chill out for a few minutes, just like they do in sports matches when I was young. We used to go into and chill out for 5 minutes, cool down, and when you're there you don't think, you really relax and rest. You know, for so many years that we've been teaching meditation, and it's also, I remember just when I was a school teacher, this was 51 or 52 years ago, that I was asked, actually not asked, told, because it was my first year as a school teacher, that I had to take the morning assembly for 1 week. And so I took the opportunity, asked the permission from the principal. Well, you know, I'm a Buddhist. I told you I was a Buddhist. I'm not going to read some hymn or something. Can I please teach meditation for the week? So this was in 1970, I think maybe 72. In 1972, I taught 650 children in a high school every morning for 5 days how to make their mind quiet. It's one of the things I'm kind of proud about. I remember just afterwards, one of the other teachers, afterwards they said, Ajahn Brahm, everyone didn't say Ajahn Brahm, my name was Peter as a layperson, what would you have done if any one of those kids, one of those, you know, the smaller classes were 11-year-olds, what would you have done if one of those 11-year-old kids hadn't cooperated and started laughing? Because you know how kids are. Once one starts, everybody starts. And the whole classroom, the assembly room, 650 kids would start sort of laughing their heads off. You know what? I never thought that could happen. And because I never even thought of that, it didn't happen. Believe it or not, that's how I interpreted it. I had so much confidence. It's a beautiful thing to do. And I remember all those 650 kids, you know, from UK, the first form up to the sixth form, they were just all looking at me. And then when I said, cross your legs, they crossed their legs, straighten your backs. And it was like what these days are called Mexican waves. All of the kids in the room, they're all straightened up. And I thought, okay, tuck your chin in, close your eyes. They all close their eyes. And I just taught them, led them in a guided meditation on the breath, just for 5 minutes. And every one of them cooperated, which was, these days, how on earth did I have the guts to do that? But afterwards, the next thing which happened, when I said, okay, now you can open your eyes, meditation's over, I got a standing ovation, which was kind of weird. They loved it. It was new, but it was working. And then since that time, I remember just one of the people used to go to our Armadale group. She was a Year 6 teacher in Roleystone. I think I can mention these names now, because I won't get her into trouble. She retired quite a long time ago. She started teaching Year 6 to young kids, teaching meditation to Year 6s, and she said how amazing it was. And she started teaching it like 5 minutes, calling it quiet time, so people of other religions would never object. And eventually when people found out what she was up to, and they started complaining to the principal, who invited me over for a cup of tea and have a chat, it was working so well. The academic achievements were easily being seen to be improving. And also what was happening, the violence in the schoolroom diminished enormously. Because what they would do, they told me this when I went to go and visit them, if there was any sort of ill feeling between two of those kids, no matter who they were, girls, boys or whatever, if there's any ill feeling, one of the kids would immediately put up their hand, "Miss, can we have quiet time now, please?" And that's what they would do. And every kid in the class loved, not having an argument. Nobody likes arguments. And just, not just the quiet time, but they all calmed down, and the social cohesion in that classroom was huge. And the teacher kept on telling me, any kid sometimes had evangelical parents and say, we're not going to have our kid being taught Buddhist meditation. And he said, well, come and have a look. And of course they all gave their consent, and that would happen for years. This is a wonderful thing you can introduce from a very early age, so that tendency towards what causes domestic violence can be lessened. I often thought, what a wonderful thing that would be, basically in all homes. If you could have a place, just a place, where you can sit and be quiet, especially kids can sit. There was a couple here, it was quite a few years ago. I've been around a long time now, so I often say quite a few years. But the memory of these events, I just don't forget them. That they had two little kids. First of all, I told them they were regulars here. If you're going to be living together and you want to meditate in your house, get a room, someplace where you can meditate. So they chose the room under the stairs. That was a little cupboard. This is nothing to do with Harry Potter. This was years before Harry Potter became famous. So that was their meditation room under the stairs. But they told their two children, about a 5 or 3-year-old, elder was a boy, this is our meditation room, so please, you're not allowed to go in there to play. It's only for mummy and daddy to meditate. So that was their little quiet room. But then one day they came and told me they saw their two kids having a fight outside. Boy and girl, but kids do fight, jealousy, all sorts of reasons. But then what the boy did, he hit his sister. It's the first time he'd hit her. And imagine what she did. She burst out crying. This was her brother, and he'd hit her and hurt her. She ran to that room. She didn't even think about whether she was allowed inside or not in that room under the stairs. She went in there and sat on one of the cushions and cried until she was peaceful. It was her resort, her place of safety, a place of peace, a place where she could let go of those feelings of being hurt by someone she loved and get past them. A lot of domestic violence, unfortunately, it gets too big and bad. But if that can actually, if you feel like you're really upset at this person you live with, if you can just go to a place like that, a nice meditation room in your house somewhere, and sit there, and don't react until you calm down enough, and you realize it's best just to let go and forgive, and be kind. And your children see that, and they want to go to such places. There's always things you can do, instead of always just thinking, I've just got to take some more abuse, more violence. Isn't there a better way of living in this world? And even when I was talking about this sort of stuff, again, please, 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 don't just turn off because it's a story you've heard thousands of times. The quack quack story. You know that one, but it's much more powerful than people give credit for. They have an argument. Quack quack, that's a duck. No, that's a chicken. No, that's a cow. No, that's an elephant. Quack quack. What does it matter who's right? Too often in our world we think that our job in life, our main purpose is being correct, being right. And if somebody gets it wrong, someone has to correct them. Why? It's all right. It's not a problem. It's quite fine being wrong. It's actually quite nice to be wrong. It's actually a humble thing to be wrong. If you're wrong about something, it actually opens you to see more deeply into things. Why do we always have to be right? That's one of the reasons why one of my favorite stories is of these two monks arguing. And these two monks were arguing, is belief in rebirth essential in Buddhism? Do you have to believe in rebirth? And one said, how can we really know for sure? We haven't died yet. Another one said, no, it's in all the sutras. You have to believe in rebirth if you call yourself a Buddhist. So they had an argument. And no amount of arguing could settle the question. So what did they go to see? They went to see the head monk. And so the first one went to see the head monk first of all. Look, no one can be sure about reincarnation or rebirth because we haven't died yet. And the head monk said, yeah, that's a good point. And so that first monk thought, yeah, I've got my answer. So he went outside and he told his adversary monk, look, the head monk agreed with me. We haven't died yet, so who can know whether it's right or wrong? And the other kind of said that. So the second monk went to see the head monk and said, but look, the Buddha talked about that all the time, and you can remember your past lives in deep meditation. It has to be part of Buddhism. And so the head monk said, yeah, that's right. And so that second monk went out and said, the head monk said, I'm right, obviously, because I am right. And the first monk said, no, the head monk said I was right. So the only way we can settle this is if we both go and see the head monk together. So they both went to see the head monk, and they repeated, their arguments, both. And then one of the monks said, we can't both be right. And that's when the head monk said, yes, that's right. And I like that because that's deep. That really is profound. And that's life. So, what's wrong with two people having different ways of looking at things? You can't both be right. The head monk is always right. Yes, that's right. And it's because of being right, who's wrong. We have way too many arguments in this world. Imagine what it would be like if Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden, when they had arguments, Mr. Biden said this, and Mr. Trump said, "Oh yeah, that's right." And Mr. Trump said something else, and Mr. Biden said, "Oh yeah, you're right there." Is it important being right, or is it important being in harmony? For you. Make your choice. Being in harmony is emotional truth. Facts, they may look right today, but somebody, as I mentioned, this really smart Alec, sent me an article from the internet about this duck who had been orphaned. No, sorry, it's a chicken who has been orphaned. This little chicken had been orphaned, and he had no choice. He was adopted by a family of ducks, and he grew up with ducks. So when the chicken flew, the chicken would always go, quack, quack. There's at least one chicken in the world who goes quack, 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 quack. So in other words, who's right and who's wrong? And who's peaceful? Which would you rather have in this world? Peace or always being right? I made my choice. Just learning how to be peaceful and be kind. Giving that more priority. But that's what you can do. That's actually how karma can actually change things in this world. So when it comes to like domestic violence, if you always need to be right and correct and the boss, that's one of the underlying causes. But the above that, if there is a problem, please, it's okay to go and see the police, see counsellors. Don't just keep taking it as you think, "Oh, it's my karma to be beaten up." I never feel like that at all. So please, don't misunderstand this Buddhist idea of karma. Your Buddhist idea of karma is the Hindu idea of karma, or any idea of karma. Just as an aside, recently, Dennis is not here today, but he was asking me about this gentleman called Edgar Casey. One of the reasons I mention him, he was in Virginia Beach between the First and Second World War. He could actually go into these trances and get these weird medical cures for people. He'd say, "No, go to the drugstore, get this medicine, that will cure them." The thing was, it did. So it was really strange. And I know this, I mentioned this for Dennis Shepherd earlier, that once he went into a trance, somebody was really sick with some incurable disease, and he said, "Oh no, we can help that. This is the medicine you should give to her." And so he went into this trance, this is the medicine, so they went straight to the drugstore. That's what they used to call chemists in those days, drugstores in US. And they said, "We haven't heard of it, it doesn't exist." So they put him in a trance again, and the second time he said, "Oh no, it's not in the local drugstore, you'll find it in St. Louis." The town of St. Louis, Missouri, isn't it? St. Louis? But anyway, somewhere, another city in the United States. So they did a telegram. That's how they used to contact distant places. They can't ring up, there was no mobile phones in those days. So they telegraphed this store and said, "You'll find this, and please can you get this drug for us, this medicine. It's in your store apparently." And the drugstore telegraphed back, "Never heard of it." So people were beginning to doubt this Edgar Casey, but he went into trance again and said, "You'll find it in the back room, second shelf on the right, to the back." They telegraphed that information to them, and the telegraph came back, "Found it." So it's pretty impressive. But what really impressed me about him, he was like a Baptist, a very solid Christian. but on one of these trances they put him into, they asked him, what is the most important rule in the universe? And he replied, the law of karma. It was about 1936 or something. And he was a very solid Christian. And that's how he responded. That was, for me, that's wow. This is kind of something. But that law of karma is important, but many people don't ever think of it as fatalistic. This has happened to you, so you must endure. Even like punishments. Somebody was arguing with me about this recently, but I stood my ground, and I'll always stand my ground. This was one of my friends. He was a monk over in Indonesia, next to Borobudur in Vihara Mendut. It's Venerable Sri Panyawaro, very lovely monk. And he gave me like the VIM guided tour of Borobudur. You know what VIM means? That's thank you, very important monk tour. So he was so informative. And when he was showing me around Borobudur, the lowest level there is supposed to be of these hell realms. But anyhow, he pointed out this one carving on the base of that part of Borobudur, Chaitya, and there was this guy with this razor wheel cutting into his head. And the story was that this guy had hurt his mother, and he said that was his punishment, to have his head cut with this razor wheel for about 300 years. And then this other guy came, and the first guy said, I was told you're going to come in 300 years, and the wheel is going to leave my head, thank goodness, and go into your head. And that's what the wheel did. Because this second guy had also done the same kind of offence, mistreated violently his mum, and that's what he was enduring. And straight away he thought, it's a terrible thing I've done to my mother, and it's a terrible thing I have to endure. I'm going to take the next, not 300 years, but 1200 years, so no one else has to endure this, out of compassion for anyone who's going to come after him. And just because that thought of compassion, a real thought of compassion, he just could not stay there. The wheel just exploded and he got reborn in the heaven realm. I understand how that works. These little places of suffering are called mind-made realms. Just that little bit of forgiveness, that little bit of kindness, and that realm, that mind-made realm, cannot persist. It disappears. The power of forgiveness is that strong. If you can forgive yourself, forgive your enemies, it's amazing. Way more powerful than you can ever expect, especially for oneself. That's why when I learned that Buddhism doesn't have guilt or punishment. How many of you have never done anything blameless? Ajahn Brahm, what terrible things have I done in my past? Especially to my mother. I've already told you quite a few times that birthday gift I gave to my mum. Remember that? I was about 6 or 7 years of age, a sweet little kid, but a bit too playful. I brought my mother, with some pocket money I'd saved up, a live eel. Put it in a box, wrapped it up so beautifully, and then gave it to my mum. Happy birthday, Mummy. Love from your son. Oh, she was so touched by it until she opened it up. Ah! An eel inside of it. It was pretty naughty. But anyway, I was smart enough to hide. I had my exit strategy, I call it. I, I, I hid for a couple of hours till the heat went down. So sometimes you do naughty things, but you're not a naughty person. You're just finding out about life. What's funny for you is sometimes very hurtful for others. But you can always forgive. Always forgive and move forward. Never argue with people or shout at people or hurt people. That's something I just can't do. Even when sometimes, we just... Where was this? It was in Indonesia. This husband and wife, they're both Buddhists on my retreat in Jakarta. And they said they were having this argument. There was a mouse, more like a rat, outside their house. And she was saying, it's outside the house, you can leave it there, it's not doing any harm, it's kind of sweet little rat. Have you ever actually seen a rat? They're really nice, they're cute. Well, I think so. And he even stroked it. It's beautiful. It's got its own little family somewhere. And the husband said, no, we've got to exterminate it because it might go into the house. And I said, no, be kind. And I eventually won the argument because, I was Ajahn Brahm. Abbott's always right. But then I said, look, your wife is feeding the rat. But it might go into the house through one of the holes. Feed it some more. Eventually that rat will get so fat, it will never be able to fit in any hole to get into your house. It will stay outside for the rest of its life. He will be happy, you will be happy, and I will be happy. That's logic to me, but it's also kindness as well. So apparently that's what they did, at least when I was staying over there. I'm not sure what they do these days. But nevertheless, isn't it life much more beautiful when you're kind? You find other options rather than killing things, being violent to things, being violent to husbands, to wives, to kids, to parents. Can you really do that? I don't know how you can do it. If it does happen, it gets dangerous, please call police. Please get support. Apparently, I don't know if the lady's here today, but she said there are organisations, and I've got their names, and that if you are in trouble like that, don't just think you can handle it and take it. People need help, and it's your job to give them that help by just going to the right authorities and taking some time out for yourself. So I didn't want to just talk about domestic violence, but it does happen. And of course I care for you. And this is something I can do. Thank you for listening. Sadhu. Sadhu. Okay. Any questions? If there's something I did which offended you, please don't beat me up. Okay, yes? Oh, yeah.
That's how I feel. You need to forgive when you are hurt, right, by another person. What if other people's action towards you do not affect you? Because you have an understanding, right? A blanket understanding of people have a hard life, whatever they say. So you don't take that into account and you don't let them affect you. Then is forgiveness still warranted? Do you still, like if you're not hurt, you're not thinking of it, you're just letting it go, then do you still need to think about it and say, oh, I forgive you? What is there to forgive?
It may not be anything which you have to forgive, but they need to hear your forgiveness.
What if it was a stranger?
Even a stranger?
Yeah, they just pass you, they say something nasty, it doesn't affect you, you've let it, do you still need to go, oh yeah, I'm pausing, I forgive you? Do you need to do that?
Nothing is needed, but it's always beneficial. when you forgive anybody, whether they deserve it or not, whether they've hurt you or not, it's a beautiful act of giving some of your heart to somebody else. I take every opportunity to ask forgiveness. Do you understand that? If not, I ask your forgiveness. I'm an asking forgiveness junkie.
Sometimes it doesn't even occur to you like it's supposed to hurt. And then, until you review, on hindsight, what did that person say? Oh, but then, if you're not hurt, is there anything to forgive?
Yeah.
It's already forgiven because you have an understanding. That's why you didn't allow
but even
that
so,
to hurt you in the first place.
It's so beautiful when somebody asks forgiveness, or they give forgiveness to you, even if you never asked for it. A beautiful thing. How many times have I said that to you and to your good husband there? I forgive you for the 3 time zones. For anything you've ever done by body, by speech or mind in the past, anything you will ever do in the future, anything you've ever done or doing right now. You've got a blank check. But I'll still keep repeating that. Forgive people for the 3 time zones, each one of you. The door of my heart will always be open for you, no matter what. Any way of expressing that, you will. That's how I feel. But if I'm wrong, please forgive me. Okay. Oh, we've got some questions on the internet, first of all. Do the internet questions first. I'm a bit late today. And please don't keep me for too long because I have to go back to Serpentine tonight.
Sorry, my friend. Just one very quick question.
Okay,
There's a wonderful song called Desiderata. It says, go placidly amid the noise and haste. I wrote a book one time, and in it I said, I only allow good people into my life, and anyone that doesn't fit into that description I walk away from. Is there anything wrong with that?
That's all you can do, that's fine. But it's much better to open yourself up, to bring people to that opportunity to see the world in that way. So in other words, every now and again, we haven't had it happen for a while, you get some people coming in here and they've been sent here to convert me. We welcome them in. In other words, we don't try and exclude people. How many times, sometimes people try and test me, see what they can do to see if they can get a bad reaction from me. Just one occasion, we had this gentleman, this was in the days of Magnolia Street, and he was a pest exterminator. He knocked on the door of the house, he didn't know it was a Buddhist temple, and said, "Do you need any pest exterminated?" And it was actually Ajahn Brahm who answered the door and started talking to him and explaining what Buddha's philosophy was. And he was really interested. And he started coming every Friday night in our Magnolia Street temple. He became a regular. So then one day, according to his wife, he was on the roof trying to fix a gutter. He fell off the roof, hit his head. And this was many years ago, almost 40 years ago now. And after he hit his head, he started dressing up like Elvis Presley. He had a mental condition. I remember him sort of coming to Magnolia Street one afternoon dressed as Elvis Presley. Because he still couldn't walk properly, he had a little stick, not as big stick, like a walking stick. And he wanted to speak to me, so I just sat on the bench there, and he started trying to hit me many times. He never would. It's something which you could guess from this. this is something, I told this to a few people earlier, one thing which I learned from the Psychic Research Society in Cambridge, ghosts, there may be things flying around the room, but they would never hit you. They would never harm you. And so this wasn't a ghost, this was a person who was, because of his injury, wasn't acting normally. But he would never ever hit me. Come very close a few times, but he's a good enough shot, he'd always miss. And because of that, I welcomed him. And that's why I knew that that kind of kindness, they can never harm you. But the sad story about that is that a few months later, that there was a very bad flu season. And those were the days, please excuse me, I was given flu jabs. And then I would always get the flu. I know I shouldn't have said that, but that was true. So I was down with the flu, and a phone call came from his wife, and he needs your help. And when you're really down with the flu, you couldn't do anything. So I said, I can't. And he committed suicide that afternoon. I tried my best, but that's all you could do. So you'd always try and get people in, as best you possibly can. It's as best you possibly can. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I'll go to a few of the questions on the internet here. Question: my mom beat my brother for many years. I think I still can accept it to a certain degree. I feel like I will feel better if I'm the one who is beaten. It is difficult for me to understand why a mother do such a thing to her son. How to see this with wisdom. There are sometimes things you see you can't understand. There's no way of finding out the psychology, even like past karma, why people do such things. But nevertheless, you do have a choice. Obviously you want to protect your brother. If he's no longer in danger, fine. Then you can forgive. I don't know why you did that, Mum. Well, the reason is maybe you don't even know. But when we have like forgiveness, and she's not afraid of facing that terrible behavior, understanding why she did it, there may be an opportunity she finds out and heals herself and never does that again. I'm talking about in the next life. But obviously these days, if your mum beat your brother really hard, then it would be better to let educational people, child psychologists, try and find out why. And sort of take that kid and protect him. This is from Florida. Dear Ajahn, thank you for your teachings. How can I help a family who has a drinking addiction without losing my self-love and respect for them, or myself when I get frustrated with this person? Sometimes why do they have a drinking problem? Once I told one of the men who I knew who had a drinking problem, I said, get someone to, say, video you when you're drunk, and then have a look at it and feel ashamed. But then he told me off, and quite correctly. He said, one of the reasons why I was drinking, I never felt I was deserved to be any other way. And I got that straight away. Sometimes a person needs kindness, love, understanding, encouragement, not shame. From Bolivia, when asked, how are you? I'd like to say, suffering arising, suffering ceasing, because I think it improved my speech, but it will sound pretty weird. Do you encourage me to say it? If it's to me, yes. And you'll get a good laugh out of me. Like many years ago, we did a funeral ceremony here for a lady, and we hadn't got the reasons from the coroner why she passed away. They had all of the evidence or whatever, or the data, but they hadn't really found out why she had passed. So when people ask me, why did she die? The answer was, because she was born. And I could do that here because I understand it was not disrespectful at all. It was something much deeper than that. That's the main reason why people die. For one reason or another, but the main reason is because you're born. Question 4 from Melbourne. I cannot form a habit of meditating regularly at home. I know I need it, and on retreat I have some really deep meditation experience, but I can't motivate myself at home. Number 1, get a nice place at home. You put aside, just for meditation, nothing else. You only need a little cupboard. If not a cupboard, a corner of your room. Set it up, that's your little cave, that's your little dome, little place where you just meditate and don't use it for anything else. So when you're needing it, it draws you. You know, I've got my cave, and that's just, it's always there for me. It's right there for me now. Kind of, it's calling me, Ajahn Brahm, please come. And it's so comfortable that, you know, you can go back there and it's easy. Once you've got a place, it's much easier to get the habit. And the other thing, of course, once you really start enjoying it, and honestly, that's what I do. Sometimes, it doesn't matter, you may be tired, you really sort of been working too hard, but nevertheless you go back into your cave, you sit down, you get peaceful really quickly. You enjoy it. Of course, I've been meditating for such a long time. I enjoy meditating, even though I shouldn't be able to. I'm tired, exhausted. I don't really get sick, but you know, sometimes I think, I should be going to bed now, but no. It's just too beautiful. It's one of the most... I mean, how many of you, if there was some, I don't know, big event or like a football match or a cricket match or I don't know what you like, if there was like a big cricket match, Sri Lanka versus Australia or something, I don't know, in the middle of the night, starting at 1 a.m., how many people would get up for that and sit watching it all night because they enjoy it? For me, my sport is meditation. So it grabs me and I enjoy it. Even if it's not the best meditation, it's still pretty enjoyable. So when you can get to that stage, you're enjoying the meditation, of course you'll do it regularly. How many times do you eat at home? Do you eat regularly? Why? You enjoy it. But if those monks said, Ajahn Brahm, you're putting on too much weight, we're going to put you on a diet, then I wouldn't mind missing food. Anyway, thank you for listening. Is there any other question before we finish off for the night? Oh, go on, Eddie. We miss you. Go on. Oh, the phone, yeah. Yeah.
Ajahn Brahm, in domestic violence, don't you think the aggressor can't control his ego?
Oh yeah.
He let his ego control him, this thing, and he acted impulsively, and that's where the damage comes. In Buddhism, we are asked, to like whenever something happens, okay, to watch to understand, something happens, the phenomena, this thing, okay, to watch our feeling, this thing, okay, yeah, and not let the ego take over, okay, calm ourselves down, this thing, and work from there on, I think.
Yeah, that's on theory. But sometimes the theory and the practice, sometimes people, they say they lose it, they lose their sense of control. So how can we eventually train ourselves to get to that point we don't react? But before that time we do need sometimes to go to professional services for assistance so the aggressor can somehow be restrained so you and the kids don't get hurt. Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you all for listening. And thank you all for being here on Friday nights to listen to me and the other monks here. I hope that there were useful talks over the year, and if there's anything which I made a mistake on, I ask your forgiveness. I mean that. I try my best. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Suakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami